Come down. Ooh, you make my high come down. Always tripping when you come around. Never have to cut you out like right now. You see, I don't have to drive me. You can say that for your mama. Maybe you should smoke some. Me try to marijuana. I was never you good. The vibe was straight. Showed you a couple of things and they feel strange. I treated you right. Everything was a gift from a time to your bag and the color on your lip.
Welcome to Seahawks Man to Man podcast, powered by Blue Wire. Shout out to the company. My name is Michael Sean Dugar. You guys can follow me on whatever Elon Musk is calling that app these days. My at name has not changed. It's also bang right there under my finger for those who are watching on YouTube. Speaking of our YouTube channel, it's Seahawks Man, the number 2 man. Appreciate the love and support everyone's been showing on there. Right now, audio people, go hit the buttons, hit the like, reshare, repost, comment, subscribe, rate, review, everything on our Instagram, on our TikTok, and on our YouTube. All the handles are the same. Seahawks Man to Man. Hit the buttons. They mean a lot to us. Thank you in advance. Helps us grow the show a lot. So thank you so much. Chris, go ahead and talk to him.
What is going on, everybody? Excuse me. A little raspy there. You can follow me on Blue Sky and Twitter at CKIDD206. And shout out to everyone subscribing on the YouTube channel. We're at 5,100 and climbing. So we appreciate all the love and support there. Make sure, because he just created it, like, I don't know, maybe 48, maybe 3 days ago, maybe or longer. Go follow Mike on TikTok. You know, he got his first little TikToker up there. Mike looked stressed doing it. Look at
because I don't know how to run that thing. I've had a TikTok for a while because people send me TikToks and to click on them, you have to have TikTok. Well, I don't know how to make a TikTok. My wife does all that stuff.
Shout out to the wife.
Let me read you my last text from her. I'm sorry, we're just on a tangent already from the intro. The last text says, I need a video with 20 O's in it. Yeah, because she wants me to make another TikTok, basically, like previewing the game and stuff. I'm not a TikToker, but follow me on there because I'm probably gonna get bullied by my wife to making more.
There it is, not. And you guys, and you can follow us on Seahawks Man to Man. That's the one that you guys have been following and supporting. So I appreciate all the love and support. But today it's one big thing. I guess I'll just take it away because I'm talking.
Yeah,
about
go
it.
ahead.
So,
yeah, I did my part. Go ahead.
One big thing, yes. So went back and watched the tape from the Seahawks, just handling business, dominating the 49ers from the start of the game all the way to the end. And one thing that caught my eye, and they've been pretty good at it, but just watching it on tape and watching the guys be energetic, it was the run blocking from the tight ends and the wide receivers. Sometimes we just get into the nitty-gritty with the O-line. Number 75, everyone's favorite, Anthony Bradford. He has his really highlight plays, and then he has lowlights. And I was this close to sending Mike a clip where he literally just turned around on a run play to the right. It was funny because I wanted to send it, but I said that there's no point. You know, he had multiple plays in that game where he did a really good job. I'm not going to egg on the guy for one silly play that he made. But back to the point at hand, wide receivers and tight ends, and they did a really good job. And what people don't understand, I don't think, in regards of what a wide receiver and tight end combo of good run blocking does, it expands the run game beyond the box. When receivers are consistently blocking on the perimeter, whether it's Cooper Kupp, JSN, Rashid Shaheed, offenses can run, you guys guessed it, outside zone, jet sweep, RPOs, which the Seahawks don't do much of at all. I think they might have done maybe like 2 RPOs all season. But they can do those things with confidence. And defenses, they can't really overload or cheat safeties downhill if they know receivers will, guess what, guys? Seal edges. And on the tape, you see that time and time again. Guys sealing edges. And it also makes these DBs have to basically play honest. You can't just drop back and play the pass because that's your first responsibility as a DB. When the ball is snapped, you're looking at the receiver, you're playing the pass. As the play develops, yes, you come downhill, you try to make a play on the football. But defenses either are going to have to make substitutions, bringing on big bodies, which are slower DBs, or risk giving that chunk yardage in the pass. So it gives the advantage to the offense. And then not to mention something that Mike and I have talked about a lot, just creating explosive plays without a elite play design. A 5-yard run can become a 20-yard run just because a receiver in JSN or Rashid Shaheed does their part and is able to get hands on a safety and lock him up and create a running lane for Ken Walker to get through. And you saw that on Saturday against the 49ers. You got that hidden yardage that don't show up in the playbook, but it can definitely win you games. And I think it just sets the tone, right? You got your fat men seeing little skinny guys like Mike and I out there blocking safeties. That just gets the blood going, the energy flowing, and the team believes that, yo, I see number 11 out there handling safeties. I see Jake Bobo, who's only getting 20 plus snaps a game. He got one catch, but he was out there attacking linebackers, getting guys off the edge, setting the edge by blocking defensive ends. That's not an easy task. And when you look at what the Seahawks did on this offense, it was just really good stuff. It's really good film. Not to mention the tight end group. Oh my gosh. Eric Saubert, AJ Barner, they had a field day. I should make a collage of all the plays where they were just, yeah, dapping each other up, flexing, because they were bullying dudes. And to be fair, it's not as if
You should
the
definitely
Niners,
do that for our socials, by the way. I'll put that on my TikTok if you do that. Make the little
I got
collage
you.
there.
I got you. I'll get that going and we'll get that out because I thought it was just impressive to see two guys taking pride in being physical. And that's something Mike Macdonald has been preaching all season. We want to be a physical football team on the offensive side of things and on the defense. Even Robbie Oots, he had a couple of really good plays where he is pancaking guys. I think he pancaked on Ken Walker's rush to the right. He pancaked, I want to say, the safety, Mustafa, who came up. Number 40 just pancake. Nice little running lane. I think a receiver was also out there blocking as well and created that lane for K9 to end up scoring. So you're seeing it. But back to the tight ends. When you have willing tight ends that are able to block, and I'm talking Eric Saubert and AJ Barner, it dictates the formation, the strength of the formation. The tight end instantly tells the defense where the run could potentially go. And you see a lot of times the Seahawks will motion number 81 from right to left. They're motioning him to go seal an edge, whether it be a defensive end, go upfield and get a linebacker, you name it. That is the advantage of having a tight end that can move. And a tight end who can consistently set the edge, down block, or even reach block forces the D to respect that side of the formation. And the offense can control leverage and run fits. And you saw that against the Niners. You just saw that all game, which is why Ken Walker, I think, had one of his best performances because the tight ends and wide receivers, not including the O-line, we know they did their part, but it also helps when you have your other guys doing it as well. They also allow good runs to become more efficient. Running backs, they get to the line of scrimmage, but when the tight ends do their job, as I mentioned, everything opens up and they can get downhill cleanly. On 2 touchdowns from Ken, that's what it looked like. The tight ends did their part and they got downfield. What was it? I want to say Ken Walker's touchdown for 15 yards on the left. You got Eric Saubert, who was in motion number 81. They bring him back. He sets on the left-hand side. So on the left-hand side, you got AJ Barner, Eric Saubert, and then you got Rashid Shaheed on the outside, and JSN on the far right. At the snap of the play, Rashid Shaheed, he goes and handles business against number 2, Diamador Lenore. Seals him off. Perfect block. And then you got your tight ends doing a really good job. You got Eric Saubert turning his defender, and you got AJ Barner turning his defender, and it creates this beautiful running lane, and K9 does the rest. Speed, dives in for a touchdown. Beautiful play design, and it works really well when it's executed, when you have tight ends that are willing to go out there and lay it on the line. And then the best part, or one of the best parts with the tight ends doing their part in the run game, is the unlocking of different personnel groups. So we talk about 12 personnel, 13 personnel with the big fellas. If you guys remember when the Seahawks had, oh my gosh, what's the former Rams coordinator, offensive coordinator that came to Seattle?
Shane Waldron.
Thank you. Shane Waldron was heavy on 13 personnel and 12 personnel. And he would do a lot of passing plays out of that, sending tight ends on 4 verts, which is insane, but it worked really well because teams are expecting to run when you got 2 tight ends on the field and a receiver and 2 receivers. It's just you're expecting a run. But no, he would do a lot of running expecting a pass, and he would do a lot of running. For the Seahawks, but this season, and in this game in particular, this tight end group that they have of AJ Barner and Eric Saubert, they allowed them to do 12 and 13 personnel without making a sacrifice to the pass game, because they can pass it in that as well. AJ Barner has had a really good year catching passes out of 12 personnel, and defense got to choose. Do we go heavy and hope that we can stop the run and risk them throwing a play action at us? So it's a game of cat and mouse, or a chess match between coordinators. And against the Niners, they put on some really good tape. Unfortunately for the Niners, not so good tape. They just looked really bad, couldn't tackle, getting ran over. DB's getting smoked, getting ran over by Ken Walker. You see a lot of that. And then, as I mentioned with the play action, having Eric Saubert out there in motion, using AJ Barner in motion, it just sets up the play action pass. And going back and watching that tape, it was a really good performance. Granted, Niners D-line is not good, but I think what it does is it builds that confidence in the Seahawks offense. They can go out there and do it. I think the Seahawks wide receivers, Cooper Kupp, that's something he's always been good at. When he was with the Rams, he used to dig out linebackers and safeties. That was his thing, and he's still able to do that. You saw that in the game against the Niners. While the D-line is much better for the Rams, I'm confident that Cooper Kupp, Jake Bobo, JSN, even Rashid Shaheed can go out there and do that. It might be more of a challenge because the Rams aren't no slouch, but sometimes, as Mike has alluded to, when it comes to wide receivers run blocking, it comes down to just going out there and doing it, getting your hands dirty. Do you want to go out there and do it? And if they have that mindset, I think you could see more potential running lanes where K9 has another good game against a defense that is far better than the Niners, but we'll be reviewing the tape and saying, wow, they did the same thing they did against the Niners at the second level with your Jake Bobos, Cooper Kupp, JSN, and even Rashid Shaheed, who you guys all know Rashid Shaheed's claim to fame is what? Running by defenses, punt return, and kick return. To see him go out there and create space for Ken Walker to run on a 15-yard touchdown, I'm sure he was getting daps and hugs and when they were reviewing the film, because you don't expect that for him. Rashid Shaheed's 5'9", $190. You're not expecting him to go physical combat, lock a guy up, and allow Ken to go score. You love to see it. So that was my one big thing, just giving a shout out to the tight ends and wide receivers, because we could have easily just talked about the O-line and what they did, because they did a good job too, but that D-line is just not good. It's cheeks. So you expect that to happen. But when you look at the next level, that was some impressive stuff, that they were able to go out there and do a good job of handling business, getting the job done, and being physical. So that's my one big thing from the Seahawks' dominant win over the 49ers.
You sold Shaheed short a little bit. Okay. In both directions. I was curious when you mentioned his height and weight. I was like, how tall is he? So he's listed at 6 feet.
Hell no. I should be nice, because I haven't been at practice to see him since he's been traded. So Mike sees him every day. I trust your eyes, Mike. My apologies. He probably is 5'11", 6 feet.
Yeah, he might be like 5. I have to check his combine numbers. I don't know if the Seahawks are pulling what they're listing at him from those numbers. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. So he's listed at 6 foot, but he's only listed at 180. Which is that's just a small cat. Explain why he's so goddamn fast.
To my point. You don't expect him to go dig out guys.
Yeah, no, yeah, 180, and that's need for speed right there. But if you're blocking guys at 180, yeah, you're definitely getting some dap. Anyway, run game has come alive, man. The people you're talking about, the people on the perimeter, that's how you have a good wide zone run game. You can't block on the perimeter. Jalen Sundell is only going to block so many people on the perimeter. Anthony Bradford is only going to block so many people on the perimeter. Your perimeter blockers are going to be Eric. There are going to be AJ. They are going to be Jax. They are going to be Bobo. So Derek Young played in this game as well. So yeah, that's a good call out. That's why the run game has come alive, I think, is because everyone on the perimeter is helping the wide zone stuff pop, so to speak. My one big thing is Mike Macdonald and the coaching job that he has done. Mike Macdonald, I would argue, had the toughest job of anyone hired in his cycle. I don't have to name all the guys who were hired when he was hired that year, but it was the toughest job. And I would argue even the toughest job of people hired last year's cycle as well. And the reason being, Mike inherited a 9-win team, essentially, which is great. You like DQ took over some garbage. Dave Canales took over some garbage. Like some other guys who got hired, they took over pretty bad teams. Pete Carroll, I mentioned Dan Quinn, Gerard Mayo, that Patriots team he took over. Like usually when you are getting hired, what you take over is bad. It doesn't really have much of a foundation. You got to build the whole thing up. You may or may not have a quarterback, right? But I mean, honestly, and I feel like you guys will feel me on this. In the NFL, I would say it's easier to go from, especially if you have resources, because usually what comes with taking over a crappy team is you usually have draft capital, a high pick, and you usually have cap space, right? So you can rebuild the thing. When you take over a decent team, like whoever's going to take over like the Steelers job, you probably got like pick 18. They got like the most expensive defense in the league, and you don't have a quarterback, and you don't even have the draft capital to even go get one, right? Those are tougher jobs. That's what Mike took over. And I think it's easier to go from like trash to decent than it is to go from like where the Seahawks were to where the Seahawks are. And to go from 9 or whatever, maybe get a 10th win there. Actually, they won 10 wins his first year. To go from 9 wins or whatever to be that type of team, forget the win total for a second, just to be that type of team where you're basically what the Green Bay Packers are now, or what the Steelers are tired of being, to be in that space where you're just mired in mediocrity. I think it is very hard to go from there to where the Seahawks are now, to 14 wins, hosting the NFC Championship or AFC Championship or whatever, than it is to do what like Brian Daboll did when he won Coach of the Year. The Giants sucked. They were still bad. They just happened to win 10 games or 9 or whatever it was, and then he got Coach of the Year. Because every team's basically 1 year away from going 8-8 or 8-9, 9-8, whatever. An injury here, injury there, you're cooked, right? But I think it's harder to take to whatever assets you have, inherit those teams, and go from good to dominant, to go from decent to dominant. That's why Packers fans are like, let's get LaFleur out of here. That's why Mike Tomlin was like, yeah, I'm good. Because going 9-8 all the damn time is like, yeah, it's always fun at the end of the year. It's like, oh, Mike Tomlin, another year without a losing record, but he's not winning anything either, right? And become kind of a victim of your own success. The same thing is going to be the issue for whoever takes over for Doug McDermott in Buffalo now. Same thing, whoever replaces John Harbaugh and Mike Tomlin. Those teams you're going to inherit. Those teams aren't trash. 2 of those made the playoffs. But it's very difficult, even if you get Josh Allen, to go from like, all right, we're maybe a 9-win, 10-win team or whatever, even 11 with Doug McDermott. But now we need to go host the AFC Championship because we're not inheriting garbage. That's where Mike was, and he has done it. Done it in 2 years. Win or lose, he's done that. I don't know who's going to win. We'll get into predictions later when we preview the Rams game with Nate. But
lies.
I don't know. Hey, no spoilers. I don't know who's going to win the game. But win or lose, Mike has done that because the Seahawks are in that position. Now, obviously, he needs to go win this game. But to do this, what he's done to get them from decent to dominant especially after a year where John just basically fumbled the 2024 offseason. Other than hiring Mike and drafting Murph, it was really not all that impactful. He signed a bunch of guys who weren't impactful at all. Jerome Baker and Kevon Wallace and Tyrell Dodson and Farrell Brown. Brought in George Fant, which was a good move. He just got hurt. But didn't have a center. Went and paid Connor Williams. Like, look at all these moves I'm naming. Laviska Shenault didn't even finish the year. A bunch of other guys didn't finish the year. That other Rams lineman that they ended up trading to the Browns. They had all these guys who just didn't. He botched that offseason to me. His free agency was bad, one of his worst ever. And Mike was like, you know what? Screw it. I'll still get to 10 wins. Like, I don't care if my center that you gave me retires in the middle of the season. 10 wins. Let's do it. And he probably should have won 10 wins no matter what because of what he inherited just from a talent standpoint. But to then take that and go, all right, we didn't luck into 14 wins. We whipped ass. The Seahawks whipped ass. They were the best team in football this year. And I felt like that going into the playoffs. And then you just go look at how the playoff games went. Chris, every game was good except the Seahawks game. The Seahawks game was the only one that didn't matter in the fourth quarter. Damn, like a 2-minute drive or whatever. By the fourth quarter, that game was cooked. You could have went out and walked your dog, went on a date, and not missed a goddamn thing. If you left turned the TV off or left the stadium in the fourth quarter. Every other playoff game was at least competitive in the fourth. The Chargers ended up not really making it that close, and the Texans as well. But those, you were at least tuned in with about 5 minutes left or whatever, if only to watch Herbert get beat up on in that game. But every game was pretty compelling, wild card and divisional round, except for the Seahawks, who put belt to ass. Why did they do that? Because of what Mike Macdonald has achieved. And the other part of this like high wire act that Mike Macdonald was asked to do is, and this is real tough. This is what Gerard Mayo was tasked with doing as well in New England. He needed to be, Mike that is, needed to be good at all the things Pete was good at and be good at all the things Pete was bad at least in the later years. That is really, really, really tough because Pete was good at a lot of stuff. A lot, like culture, motivational stuff, like even just the blueprint for success was there. It's the same thing. What are we talking about these days right now in January? Can the Seahawks run the ball? Is their special teams good? How's the defense? Like that's what wins football games and protecting the football. All those are Pete-isms. Like Pete never got that part wrong, but he got other stuff wrong about maybe who to hire, what players to play, how his messaging was coming across, getting his players to take that messaging and translate it to Sundays. So to be able to get all the schematic stuff right, fix the defense, which I expected him to do, but still, you got to go do it. Fix the defense, get the culture stuff right, and elevate the team beyond where Pete had taken it against McVay and Shanahan. That was damn near impossible. The NFC West is one of the best divisions we ever seen this year. Every team was good except Arizona. 3 NFC West teams in a divisional round. That's unreal, right? Like, and no fluky stuff to get there either. Like they were better than both the teams, the Rams and Niners were, that they played in the wild card round, I think at least. And so for Mike to do this, how did he do it? He had to get the culture right. Culture was a huge part. And what do I mean by that? He has a bunch of Mike Macdonald-isms. 12 is 1. Chasing edges. Go through it, not around it. Make it right. Now they got like the mob and the death zone and the dark side and all these isms. They're all a style no one wants to play. It's probably the other big one. All these are just isms until the players bring them to life. Well, how do you get them to do that? First, you got to clearly define what you want what it looks like to be a Seahawk, what it looks like to eat like a Seahawk, sleep like a Seahawk, practice like one, take care of your body like one, take care of your teammates like one, and then go perform like one, no matter what your position is, whether you are blocking on the perimeter of a run, like Chris just talked about, or you're carrying the ball, or you are fitting the B gap, the inside run on defense. Like, what does it look like? And so that way, when you get to later in the year and something goes wrong, okay, we have our foundation. We know what it's supposed to look like. That's where me and Chris and I knew that the Ryan Grubb thing wouldn't work because he had no identity. So in October, when you guys aren't running the ball, what is he supposed to show you film of? The UW offense to how to, get back on track? No, you can't do that, right? Kubiak can, which is why that ended up being a good hire. Another good move by Mike. But I think just in general, just the foundation. One of the things I love that Mike talked about and has done is he shows the examples of it and highlights those as much as anything. Because if you notice, when Mike gets asked about a player and they're doing well, he hardly ever talks about like their talent. Go ask him about Jax. He's going to talk about Jax's work ethic and his mindset. Go ask him about how Reek has played since week 1. He'll be like, all Reek did was stack days. Go ask him about why Charles got $100 million. Like, because Charles is drenched in sweat when we do our walkthroughs. Like Mike was sound like he's about to cry on the radio when he announced that Zach Charbonnet had a season-ending torn ACL. Not just because Zach had a career year, it's because of how Zach worked, his attention to detail, his mindset every day, and that's what it means to be a Seahawk. And there's so many plays this year that he shows every week where it's like, hey guys, this is us. Chris talked about those runs becoming like going from a decent run to a great run. They had one where Ken runs right into 2 DBs and then 8 teammates come and push him forward for like extra 6 yards. They were up 30 at the time of that play, but it didn't matter because that's their style. And no matter what, you play your style, doesn't matter what the other team does. And so that's a culture thing, though. That's when you see that a style nobody wants to play on the wall as you walk out to the practice field, it's just words until guys do that. It's just words until what Chris is talking about, guys who weigh the same as me and him are out there blocking guys. It's just words until D-Law is completely out of position and then gets back into play to make the forced fumble against the Vikings. It's just words until DeMarcus Lawrence is again completely out of position and gets back in play to knock the ball out of Chuba Hubbard's hand. Like, yeah, you can make mistakes. I think D-Law expected a pass on both of those. Doesn't matter. He made it right. And that's the style. And then it goes to another saying, it's like, make it right. And I could go on and on. It's all these examples, you know, of it's not even about the score or whether you first force a turnover. It's like, are you playing our style? And when you have that, that sets a culture. And that sets a foundation that will last beyond whether they're running too high, single high, quarters, cover zero, wide zone, inside zone, play action. It don't matter. The league does this. I'm doing a circle for those who are not on my, on our YouTube. The league is cyclical. Something's hot one year, then a bunch of guys get hired from that dude's tree, and that guy has to evolve. McVay's been doing that. We'll talk to Nate about that as well. Nate Atkins, who covers the Rams. But Sean McVay's been doing that. Remember, Chris, he was the 11 personnel god for a long time. What is he now? 13 personnel god, because he needed to evolve. And when that's your mindset, chasing edges, another one from Mike, then you're always ahead. You still have your foundation, but your foundation is evolution, and it just from the violence to the foundation being evolving to just having the style that guys can go back to. That's really important, because that's what the Legion of Boom had as well, that Pete captured. You knew if you were playing Seahawk football or not because everyone else around you was. You could look around and be like, damn, Ricardo Lockett blocking his ass off. I'm a receiver. That's probably what I should be doing. Or whoever it was, a lineman, Okung, Unger, doesn't matter. Same thing with the tight ends. And if you came into the Seahawks DB room, you damn sure knew how you're supposed to get down. What is Earl doing? What is Cam doing? What is Sherm doing? What's Bobby, KJ, Cliff, Mike? Like, what's all them guys doing? The standard was set. It was so obvious that Pete barely even had to repeat it. That's why when they felt like Pete deviated from who they were, they got all pissed and felt betrayed and started claiming that Bevel called the play so Marshawn wouldn't get MVP. They turned in conspiracy theorists. Everybody turned into Kyrie Irving about the COVID shot once they threw it on the one because they felt so betrayed. They were like, "Oh, you don't believe in this stuff, then, Pete? You're not buying. You don't believe in this stuff no more." Because they felt like it strayed from the culture. Mike's got that. He at least has established that, and that's so hard to do. It's hard, man. It's hard to get guys to buy into this stuff. Football hurts. Guys want to get paid. Guys want sacks. Guys want PBUs and turnovers, and they want to catch the ball. They want to score rushing touchdowns. But to get them all to be like, you know what I'm bought into? How we play. Like guys after that Houston game on offense were like, we didn't play good enough. Dog, y'all scored 27 on Houston. Nobody scores 27 on Houston. But they were like, we didn't play to our style. I mentioned this a few times on the show now, that after that Tennessee game, the defense was like, that was not it. They only give up 17 points, but they didn't play their style. Chris, remember how many points they gave up the next game on defense after that? Zero. 0 point. Now it was Max Brosmer, but still, don't matter. The point was they didn't play to their style. And that was the point. It didn't matter if they beat the Titans by 30 or by 2. You had to play a certain way to be a Seahawk. And it sounds so cliche, and all of it is. Really, it is just words. I watched John Harbaugh's introductory speech this morning on NFL Network. Bunch of coach speak. We're going to be physical, tough, run the football, love each other, all this stuff. Because that is the way to do it. But how do you make that show up? How do you make that show up? Mike's made it show up. Win or lose on Sunday, he's made that show up. And I think they have that foundation. Losing would suck. But I don't think they'll be screwed if they lose this game. Because they have a foundation that's going to withstand any, if a bunch of guys who run this same scheme get coaching jobs. Anthony Weaver is up for a coaching job. Jesse Minter, who runs the same scheme, Chargers DC, he could get a head coaching job. And they start plucking coaches away and running the same stuff. I don't think that's going to matter for these guys, just like it doesn't matter for Sean McVay because of the culture that they set. We're evolving, but we still have a style we play. You still hit people in the mouth. We still finish blocks in the run game. We still give maximum effort. Chris, you remember Sam's first pick against the Rams in Week 16?
Yeah.
The dude almost pick sixed it. You remember why he didn't end up pick sixing it?
Dropped it.
No, Ken chases him down.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
yeah,
I'm tripping. He picked
I'm sorry,
it. He didn't drop it.
Yeah. I didn't explain that well enough. I'm sorry. But yeah, like Ken chased him down 50 plus yards to tackle him at the 1. Blake Corum, I think, scored the next play. Doesn't matter. Ken did his part to sprint his ass down there and go stop that guy. That's a play that you show, not to embarrass Sam because of the pick. You show it in film to be like, yo, this is the effort. I shouldn't have to coach this to you. You should do it because that's who we are. So that's why my one big thing is Mike Macdonald, because that's why they whipped the Niners' ass, and that's why they should win on Sundays, because whether you're playing a Niners team with a bad front, a Rams team with a great front, elite DBs like the Texans have, an elite front like the Texans have, a banged up and bad Commanders team, a broken and young Saints team. If you be you're gonna win. They're good enough to do that, and it's hard to get to that place. Mike Vrabel has done the same thing. He's made it so they know, hey, if we just be us, we're gonna win games. Why the Patriots have won a bunch of games and are probably going to be in the Super Bowl. So my one big thing, not just for the game against the Niners, they kicked their ass. Like Chris said, they suck. The Niners are back. That front is disgustingly anonymous. But what the Seahawks have is that everyone's kind of nameless and faceless when you play them. They're just like, we're playing against our own standard. If we do that, you're probably not going to win if you're the other team. So and you got to get your team to believe. You can't turn that on in the playoffs. You can't be like, all right, divisional round, guys. Let's finish blocks. No, if you haven't been putting that on tape since August, it don't matter. Chris and I talked a lot last year about how Mike would always come up after the game, be like, yeah, I love how we played. I loved our effort. And you know what? I get it. Because if you don't have that effort, you can't turn it on again in the biggest game of the year.
And that's important because he said that after losses. After every loss, the guys fought hard. They played hard. I'm like, bruh, ain't nobody even damn about that. But that was about the culture. He was setting a standard. They play their asses off, even in a tough loss. And when he says it after a win, everyone's like, yes, absolutely. Of course they play hard. But to say it after a loss, I see the callous he was building within that team. I see what you guys are doing. I know we didn't go our way. I might have made a bad call here. We didn't execute that there. But you guys still went out there, balls to the wall, and gave it everything. And then you look around the league, as Mike likes to pull out. Go watch the Jets. Yeah. How many times are they going hard? So I understood the process and why he was saying that after every loss, the guys fought hard. However you want to phrase it, his ending was, the statement is, the guys competed. So I understand that fully.
Yeah, it is hard to hear in the moment. It's taking L. It's like, yeah, I was real proud of our effort. Like, time out, coach. We just lost, bro. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, nobody trying to hear that. But from a coaching standpoint, that is what the first thing you're looking at when you turn on the tape. Did we put in the right effort to win this game? And sometimes they did. Like when they lost, honestly, I would say every game they lost this year, the effort was good. To be honest, like I didn't feel like they didn't. Now they just played bad schematically on defense in 2 of those losses. But then on the flip side, the effort on offense was great in 2 of the other losses. So I think the effort was good in every game that they've had for the most part. Maybe the Titans game on defense wasn't their best effort, but I'm starting to see. Now I'm starting to see, because we knew that last year too. But the fruits of that, like I said, like Chris, that's perfect word. He kind of built a callus. Like, all right, we're the effort team. We're not a bunch of tryhards. Not a bunch of 2-star recruits, right? Playing the juggernauts. They have 5 All-Pros, I think, on the team or something like that. At least like 4. They got talent, but everybody's got talent. The Rams have talent. The Niners had some talent. Some, not a ton, but if they make the Super Bowl, the other team will have talent too. So it's not just about, do we have more talent than the other guys? Like, are you proud of your team's effort? And you can't coach that in December and January. Those guys either have it because you built that up last year, or in May, June, July, August, whatever. So that's a long way. I'm sorry. One big thing this week though, but I think Mike's earned it though, because they're here because he did the hardest coaching job of anyone I think in the last couple years, and you're gonna see how tough that is when whoever takes over for Harbaugh, whoever takes over for Tomlin, and whoever takes over for McDermott. Now McDermott didn't win a bowl, so it's a little different of a bowl. But that's what you got to do, though. You got to get to the bowl if you take that Buffalo job, and you got to win it. But you'll see how hard it is to do that, to be good at everything Doug McDermott was good at, and all the things they don't like about Doug. To be good at all the things that Mike Tomlin was good at, which is a lot, and then pick up where Mike was lacking. Same thing with Harbaugh. That's tough. Mike has done it. Again, no matter what happens on Sunday, he has got to that point with the route foundation and culture. So shout out to Mike Macdonald. I still don't know who's going to win on Sunday. But that's my one big thing this week with Mike Macdonald, what he's built here. And to help us segue, ding, to help us look at who is going to win on Sunday, we're going to talk to the homie Nate, who covers the Rams for The Athletic, fresh off the plane from Chicago, the thriller down there at Windy City. So we'll talk to him about that on the next portion of the show. So stay tuned for that. Here's Nate. All right. We got to preview this highly anticipated matchup. We need an expert coming in. So rejoining us on the Seahawks Man-to-Man podcast for the second time this season, we got Nate Atkins, covers the Rams for The Athletic, fresh from Chicago. What's up, Nate? How you doing?
Doing well, man. It just feels like destiny for us to be back on this podcast, talking about these two teams and a Super Bowl on the line. And if it's gone like it's gone for their first two matchups, I expect this to go to quadruple overtime, and neither team can get separation.
Yeah, I mean, Ernest Jones in Week 11, someone asked him in the press conference. They were like, "Hey, are you trying to see these guys more than just the rematch in Seattle?" This was in Week 11, and Ernest was like, "I hope so. That's what we're on. We want that." You know, obviously that's the case. Is that the vibe you got from the Rams too? Like they wanted round 3 of this.
Oh yeah, like the second that game ended in Seattle, you know, where they went from up 30-14 to losing. It was Kobe Turner, who's one of the team captains, just said, like, we know we're going to see these guys again, which is kind of standard for players to say when they lose to a top team. But it also, like, when the moment he said that, I was like, you know, I feel like that's probably where this is going to go. And there were certainly moments this postseason that it looked in doubt. You know, Rams had to pull the last two games out in some crazy ways. But yeah, ultimately it just felt like these two teams have had just super similar seasons. I mean, they had both lost. Well, I guess the Rams ended up losing 5 games by the end once they dropped that Falcons game. But for most of the season, they were just kind of neck and neck in record. Split the 2 home games. I think 2 of them are separated by like 1 point on the season and just a handful of yards. And it's been 2 teams built in very opposite ways, where Seattle is sort of the great defense with a defensive coach and then some explosive offensive plays. And the Rams are the number 1 scoring offense, trying to get by with the lowest paid defense that also has some explosive plays in it. And so here we are. I feel like these are the 2 best teams in the NFL, though. I felt that for most of the season. I think that's bared true in the postseason when you see how the Niners kind of ran out of gas. The Eagles proved to be not really a team with a high ceiling. There's going to be people who argue the Patriots or if the Broncos had Bo Nix, but they don't anymore. But I really think these 2 teams, they've been neck and neck in our NFL prediction model has had them kind of trading off as Super Bowl favorites. And so here we go. I'm excited for it. Excited to get to Seattle and see how these 2 teams match up for a third time.
Yeah, I want to ask him about Sean McVay. This will be a two-parter here. I want to start with what you heard from him after the Falcons game. It sounded like he was basically like, hey, we're not playing good at all. So, hey, yo, week 18, we rolling the ball out. Don't care about seeding because we basically need momentum. It sounded like he said. So that I want to know, my first part will be, did Sean identify maybe more of what he was looking for, and has he gotten it? Since he played those guys in week 18 and into the playoffs. And then it seems like from reading the coverage and seeing some clips in this Bears game, that he was very critical of his own performance as the play caller So I want to know from you what you heard and what you saw from what maybe went wrong for him. Let's start with what he was like, Sean, after that week 18, or excuse me, after the Falcons game. Let's start there.
Yeah, it's been a strange past month or so for this team because they go into Seattle, and as we mentioned and well know, they went up 30-14 in the fourth quarter, and it just felt like that was coming off of a stretch where they dropped one game to the Panthers that felt very fluky, but where they had 3 turnovers. But this pretty much felt like an offensive machine that had really built an identity, at least on defense, that could complement the offense. And it was like the moment that Rashid Shaheed took that punt back, kind of a lot of things changed for this team. And it just kind of continued up until now in certain ways where, special teams became such an issue. They fired the special teams coordinator right after. They had the punt blocked in Carolina. So that's kind of that's shown itself a little bit more. Some of the defensive, maybe lack of resources and investments and talent with Quentin Lake out has shown up. And then they just have been kind of weird on offense where they're putting up points in all these games, not against Chicago, only 20 points in overtime, but they nearly won the Falcons game, put up 24, and it were great in the second half and pulled out Carolina with a lot of points, but they haven't felt like the offensive identity that they were right up to the end of that Seahawks game. The stuff we were talking about for most of the season with how they were running at will and using 13 personnel, it hasn't really felt that. It hasn't felt cohesive and like with an identity. And yet within that, they have moments where, Puka Nacua looks like a crazy great player and Matthew Stafford makes some great throws. And, they're able to kind of find their way to get the points at the end of the day in most of these games. But I think Sean realized after this last game, so take it back to that Falcons game, he just realized like that team, I think that was such a gut punch of a loss in Seattle, and then a very long layover from a Thursday night game to a Monday night game the next week where they felt like they lost control of the 1 seed, and they just didn't come in with energy in that game. And then, they've gotten some things going around the offense since then. It just feels like his assessment after this past game in Chicago is like they don't have the feel and the confidence and the identity as an offense that they had for so long this season, where it just felt like they could roll out there and play their style and play their game, and they were one step ahead of the opponents. Some of that's kind of gone away. And so it's been a very interesting time for this team because there's reasons to be less confident in the offense that for most of the season, you just felt like if they're not turning the ball over, I don't know how teams stop them. And yet the flip side of that, though, is that there is reason to believe a little bit more in the defense and even the special teams, at least coming off this Chicago game. And I think Sean was a mix of, disappointed in himself and realizing how close they came to blowing it with their offensive game plan and their offensive performance, while also proud of kind of the culture and some of the hires he's made and decisions he's made midseason in those other areas to keep that from being the reason that they're out. And so they go into this Seattle game where you're less confident in the offense than you used to be, but you're also more confident in the defense and the special teams. And it's weird because the first 2 games between these 2 teams have been played at different styles. And it was like the Rams won the one that was the Seahawks style, the sort of defensive, lower scoring game. And then the Seahawks pulled out the one that the Rams felt like was to their style, the more high scoring back and forth game that went into overtime. And so I don't know. I just think they're happy to be in this moment. They're excited to get another round against the Seahawks. And they feel like the fact that they're pulling out some of these chaotic games that used to be the only way they lose, that in its own way is a sign of them evolving as a team, even if they're not hitting the high ceiling that they were early in the season.
I want to look at the quarterback for the Los Angeles Rams because Matthew Stafford, he's been on fire this season. But I did notice, and I have some stats to back it up, that the Bears, they pressured old man back there. They sent 5-man pressure. They sent some blitz. They tried to get him off his step. And for the most part, it looked like it worked a lot more than I would expect. How do you think Matthew Stafford will respond if Mike Macdonald also decides to say, you know what, we got to try to get this guy off the spot? Will he make the same mistakes you think he made against the Bears, missing throws? Or is that just something that, you know what, he had a rough game, it was freezing cold out there, snowing, all that stuff. he did what he could and he managed it. How do you think that's going to play out?
Yeah, these two postseason games have been interesting from Stafford's perspective because they've both had weather elements where it was super, super windy in Carolina, even if it was pretty warm, and then it was really snowy and cold in Chicago. And halfway through that Panthers game, Stafford sprained the index finger in his throwing hand, and that seemed to throw him off, and then he caught fire at the end of the game. This past one, it didn't feel like the injury's been as much of a talking point. It just was sort of like, I don't know. It was so weird this past game where they seemed to come in and think that they were going to just drop 50 on the Bears by airing it out. And I don't know how much of that was just sort of, the overall confidence and ego of these guys and the fact that, Chicago just eliminated Matt LaFleur, their former offensive coordinator, and they wanted to go out there and show not only are we not afraid of the snow, but we're going to dominate playing our style after practicing in 75 degrees and sun in Los Angeles. It worked for a drive. They went 85 yards in the first drive, and then it just froze up, and they didn't adjust to that. But it was just very surprising to see that game plan instead of, building through the run game, the 13 personnel that they ran for so much this season. They just haven't been doing that lately. And I don't think Stafford's been in the right space ever since they decreased in that. I don't know how much of that is they finally have Davante Adams and Puka Nacua healthy, and they just think we're going to pivot back to what we originally tried to begin this season of just airing it out with those guys. But they've hurt themselves in protections by not playing these tight ends nearly as much. They're living 11 personnel, and then the Bears surprised them by sending a lot of blitzes. They didn't do that against the Packers. So I don't know how much of it was they carried over things that the Packers thought would work in that matchup, and then the Bears did something different. But it has been interesting because Stafford has been really good under pressure until the past two games, and it hasn't worked out quite as well since then. I don't know. I think the best solution for them is to get back to playing tight ends on the field, use more play action, run to set up the pass rather than a lot of what happened on Sunday night in Chicago, which was throwing on 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, and the Bears are sending a blitz and they're not picking up, and their receivers are slipping and not catching the ball. It's been sort of a messed up passing game in moments on all levels with that. And that happened in Carolina where there was a play where Davante Adams was wide open and Stafford sailed it over his head. There was a play where Puka Nacua was wide open and Stafford hit him and he just dropped the ball. And so, how much of that is rust from Davante Adams versus weather impacts is all kind of there right now. And obviously the opponents are they're laying it on the line right now. I think they're rolling out some things that they had not done in other games because it's either win or go home at this point. And so I expect, I'm sure Mike Macdonald's going to do some of that too. And that'll be the fascinating chess match is to face these two teams squaring off for the third time. What do they do that's similar? What do they do that's different? And but Sean McVay, the thing I will say about him is that he is a super reflective and introspective coach. And before any of us could bring it up, he's the one who came out on Sunday and said the game plan was brutal. Some of the situational calls were terrible. He didn't have a feel for it. And I think he'll learn and grow from that. And I think it's encouraging that the Rams were able to survive a game like that without Sean's best, so that they're going to bet on him and Stafford having a bounce back this week. They'll need it, but I think they feel good enough about those guys not repeating that 2 games in a row if they can do the rest of what they did on defense and special teams.
Yeah, because Brisker and Gordon got to Matthew Stafford on Brisker was on a blitz. They sent a 6-man blitz, and then Brisker on a 5-man pressure. So I'm curious how Mike Macdonald attacks it. I know Nick Emmanwori's used it a lot in pressures, and if he can get his hands on Matthew Stafford, I think that would bode well for the Seahawks defense. So it'd be interesting, that chess match between those two. Another player on this offense outside of Puka Nacua is Davante Adams. The last time the Seahawks played the Rams, he wasn't available. That hamstring was not acting right. He was trying to warm up, and I just knew he wasn't going to play. Hamstrings are tricky situations to deal with, but he didn't fill the box sheet up against the Bears, but he did have a great play, great catch in overtime that sealed the deal pretty much. And how do you think Sean McVay will look to get him more opportunities versus the Seahawks secondary that's been playing lights out, and they've only been sending 4-man pressure?
Yeah, Davante's season overall has been kind of a lot of fits and starts where the efficiency, the overall kind of passing volume hasn't as much been there. but when he's needed to make plays in the fourth quarter and in the red zone, he's been pretty money. And so, when he came back against the Panthers, he'd been off for 3 games, I think, at that point. It just felt like it wasn't fully there, either physically, connection-wise. This past game, it was just sort of like, I just don't think those elements were – first of all, one thing that changed is they didn't think it would snow in that game at all. They thought it was just going to be cold, and so they'd have to be a little bit crisper on details, but they didn't anticipate the conditions making it hard to actually grip the ball and change direction. But what was a little glaring in that matchup is that they didn't, the Rams don't have the best receivers at separating down the field. So when they've gotten explosive plays this year, it's often out of play action. It's a tight end that leaked that people didn't know was going to be part of the pattern. It's been Puka Nacua catching the ball and then making somebody miss and exploding after that. Or occasionally they'll hit Puka, just exploding down the field when he is able to get a clean release. But Davante Adams hasn't really been that explosive downfield player. He's more the guy that's supposed to win in the red zone and win in some one-on-one man coverage opportunities when they feel like they have to get a play made. So you saw that late in overtime against the Bears when Matthew made that terrific throw to the sideline and Adams laid out to catch it. But at this point, I think Davante, he's in his 12th season. He's had a lot of injuries this year. I think it's been 3 different hamstring injuries throughout this season. He's healthy right now, but I don't know that he's in a space where he needs to be the number 2 and Puka needs to be the number 1. And they just haven't had a lot of games where both of them have been at their best health-wise to really create that flow. And that's where I think they need a little bit more of the 13 personnel with play action and just lean on the run a little bit more, and then use those guys in the moments that favor them the best, which is Puka on third downs and Davante in the red zone. I still think it's going to be a really good passing game, but I think Davante Adams at this point is sort of that. He's that guy that's going to win on money downs more than carry the offense. They need Puka to carry the offense, which he mostly has. And then this past game, had an okay game, but wasn't as crisp as he could be trying to run out there in the snow. So they'll hope they can avoid that kind of weather this time and hope that they get back to it, because last time they faced the Seahawks, Puka went nuts. So I don't know if they need a week of Puka creating a lot of distractions for himself and feeling like he has to answer for that, because that was the crazy thing is no Davante Adams, short week, road trip, crazy distractions for Puka, and he went for 12 catches for 225 yards and 2 touchdowns. They don't necessarily need that out of Puka, but they need a 100+ yard game out of him and then build everything else out of that.
Well, see, I see where the Rams went wrong then. They didn't use all their resources. They didn't know they had someone who could give them the real scoop on Midwest weather and Nate Atkins. They didn't consult you. They went out there and was like, it's just going to be cold. We'll be fine. I'm surprised they didn't come to you for some expertise there about how to handle the cold before the game.
Yeah, I don't know. They wanted to just talk all week about how it was we play our game, and I thought that just meant we're going to practice in these conditions and run the ball. It's not what they wanted to do, though. They wanted to drop 50 through the air. But yeah, I think they found out in a hard way. And, the cold's not for everybody. Only some of us were born in it.
Yeah, no, the Seahawks played on Christmas, the day after Christmas last year in Chicago. So I flew there on Christmas and I landed. I was like, yo, this is different type of cold right here. Christmas in Chicago. It was a fun time. Explored the city and stuff the day of the game because it was Thursday night football. But yeah, you got to be ready for that cold, or it's gonna hit you in the face. One more on the offense though, before I switch to the defense, because I'm hearing this and now I'm curious, just your general opinion here. Are you worried about the Rams offense going into this game based on everything you've just told us?
A little bit. Heading into that Seattle game, that's when it felt like I don't know how you really stop this team unless you force turnovers. And even some of the turnovers they've had have been to that point where fluky. It was like tip passes and stuff like that. At this point, it's they haven't turned the ball over this postseason, but they just don't seem to have that hierarchy established in the passing game the same way. and they're not leaning on the run as much. Now, the thing about it is they just got Kevin Dotson back at right guard this past game, which is why I thought they'd run the ball. He got hurt in that Seattle game about midway through. And if you notice, you go back to that moment, they got a lot less aggressive. They weren't going for it on fourth down. They were, that's when they started punting a lot late in the game, where they just kind of tried to, handle the clock and not. So I don't know, maybe that played into how aggressive they wanted to be throwing the ball, because he's a very good pass protector, but he's an even better run blocker. He's, I had an assistant coach in the league tell me that played the Rams, said that he's the engine of this entire run game. And so they got to get back to that. They at least, you're not going to run all over the Seahawks probably, because very rarely do any teams do that, but they need that to be like a higher volume, stable force to get them into 3rd and 5 or less. And if they get into that, that's where I really trust Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay. And I think they'll learn from this past game. And I think Puka will show up in a big way. So I'm less confident that the offense is unstoppable. But the flip side of that is I did not know that they had a game like that from the secondary or their special teams in them in a postseason game. That's what I thought they was going to catch up to them. And those two units were absolutely terrific against Chicago. And so, yeah, it's weird. It's a weird evolution for this team, where they have gone from being the number 1 scoring offense to not being as potent there. But they look like a more complete team now that they have Quentin Lake back at safety, a new kicker, and they just put out a performance like that builds a lot of confidence. So I think they're a more rounded team if they're a less maybe explosive team.
So I want to talk about these DBs, not necessarily how they've been playing per se, because, I saw there was a video. I don't know if you saw Houston Texans after they strapped up with the ghost of Adam Thielen and DK. They were really confident. And Jalen Petrie's like, he's like that, pointing at Derek Stingley. Kamari Lassiter's like that. I'm like that. Caleb Bullock's like that. We the best. We got it, right? And then after the Seahawks just won their game, they're just popping it everywhere. Nicky Manwari's calling the Niners just fake tough guys, basically. Rick Williams tweeting Dante Whitner like, "Yo, what's up, man? You said I wasn't like that. What's going on?" They just talking, right? They're on it. And then I'm remembering what you were telling me after these guys picked off Sam 4 times, and then I'm starting to read more quotes. I read some stuff from Cam Curl. I'm like, wait a minute. Are the Rams DBs like the soul of this team? Like, are they the attitude of this squad? And if so, like how so? What have you seen from that? Like the attitude of this secondary that I don't want to call much maligned, I guess. But as you mentioned, it's a cheap group, maybe not the best group, but it does seem like they've got some swag to them.
Yeah, I think they've started to hear what people think nationally about them, and it's there's not a standout player at the premium spots at outside cornerback exactly. There's not the high draft picks and all of that, and they feel like they're more capable than some realize that they are, and they've shown that. They showed that in that Seahawks game. The very next week they faced Baker Mayfield and gave him a nightmare as well. But they've had some tougher times as they've dealt with injuries to Ahkello Witherspoon, their top outside corner. He's going to be out for this game, out for the season. But also Quentin Lake, they just extended at safety, who plays 3 different positions for them. And so when they got him back against Carolina, I think they thought that would be their moment, but it didn't all come together in that game. They had penalties. They gave up a few explosives. But this was a game that they felt like they wanted to really show, number one, that they're better than people think, but number 2, that that's the unit that can bring the fight in tough conditions. If it's going to be harder to throw out there, they're going to make your life hell too. And that was the attitude they played with against Caleb Williams. They just really felt like they had to go up against Caleb and Ben Johnson and play with extreme confidence rather than just try to survive and hang on. And they played their best game since that Seahawks game. They picked Caleb Williams off 3 times. The last time a team did that to Caleb Williams was the Notre Dame Fighting Irish when he was at USC.
Good pull.
So that was cool. They just made a lot of plays on 3rd and 4th downs. They gave up that crazy play at the end. That was one of the greatest stories I've ever seen from Caleb Williams. 26 yards behind the line of scrimmage, chucking it on 4th down, where, if we're being honest, Cole Kmet shoved off to create the separation for that. But, I mean, they still could have made that play even after the push off. But it was crazy. And I think the way that they responded from that to get the interception in overtime from Cam Curl, and that was kind of the big thing, was Cam Curl has been this guy that he's the one that's kind of wearing this badge of, being underrated, because he's always kind of played this role in his career of doing a lot of things that aren't flashy. He led all safeties and tackles this year, but he didn't maybe have a lot of the, turnovers and PBUs that people will often look at to define a great safety. But he came out there against the Bears, and man, he broke up plays on the sidelines. He stuffed the run, and then he got the interception to change the game around. And so he's the one really wearing that as a voice for that secondary to talk and pop off and be like, we are, we can be the engine of a run to the Super Bowl. And how much of that is truth versus, how DBs are.
They're irrationally confident.
They have to live in this delusional world, because otherwise it is a confidence just goes away quickly if you're not like that. So I think they're just kind of leaning into how they feel like they have to be able to handle this. So they revel when people don't think that they're up to the task. And so when they face the Seahawks that first game, they kind of like the fact that everyone talked about how nobody can cover Jackson Smith-Njigba, and they handled him enough to hold him. I think he had like 70 yards in that game, but they were able to create some turnovers, 4 picks on Sam Darnold. Obviously, Jackson had his way in the second matchup. So this is sort of a chance for them to show a little bit of that again, because when you think of this Rams defense, it's the lowest paid in the NFL. But if you were to think of like who are supposed to be the standout guys, you think about Jared Verse and Byron Young. And so the sort of backhanded compliment that comes with that is, well, the secondary just has to not screw that up and like let them get to the quarterback. But in their world, it's a marriage where there's times when, and this has been happening the last few games, where those two are just going to flush the pocket and force a rush throw, and they're going to be the ones that make plays, and they play in zone coverage, and they live in dime personnel. So they feel like their defensive scheme is built around them, even if the resources of the defense are built in the front end. And so, they're trying to bring the fight, and they did in Chicago, and we'll see if they can do 2 straight games of it, because that would go a long way to them winning if they can get a good game out of the secondary versus, there have been some other games where they've not been as sharp.
Game changer. Rashid Shaheed was traded to the Seahawks on November 4th. The Rams got a taste of him, but Emmanuel Forbes on a deep pass was able to break it up. And since then, the Seahawks have tried to hit a deep ball for Rashid Shaheed. He has not connected, but he's returned punts for touchdowns, kickoffs. Are you concerned that this could be the game that Rashid Shaheed is downfield and there's no Ram safety or corner in sight? He hasn't done it yet. Seahawks fans have been waiting on it. I've been watching the film. Teams are doing a really good job of staying over the top. Hell, against the Niners, Sam Darnold said, F it, I'm giving him a shot. It went incomplete, but he chucked it up there because you got to give him a shot at least once, right? So I'm curious from your standpoint. You just talked about this unit and how well they've been playing in the postseason, but is there a party that's like, man, could this be the game where, they have responded in special teams, but maybe Rashid Shaheed has a day where he has a coming out party because they do a good job on Cooper Kupp, they do a solid job on JSN, but then the speedster, he just happens to have his best day on the biggest game of the most likely the season other than Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, I think this pair of outside corners for the Rams is still it's a bit of a boom or bust approach to them, because they will give up plays, and they give up something a little bit in physicality. At least like when Kobe Durant and Emmanuel Forbes are out there, those are your super athletic ball hawking type players, but they're not maybe the guys to win contested catches and to win physical battles down the field. So like when they handled JSN that first time, as physical as he is, that was more about forcing rush throws from Sam Darnold that weren't going to be on target and them breaking on the ball more than them winning kind of at the catch point. So, it goes back to whether they can marry that up or not. I think as far as like the deep passes, they're in the best place they've been in for a while to at least limit sort of the super explosive down the field throws, because they have all their safeties. Quentin Lake back, he got hurt in about halfway through that first Seahawks matchup. And then, they have Cam Kitchens, who's your classic free safety. And then Cam Curl, as we mentioned, is sort of a rig run defense type strong safety who all of a sudden broke out with that interception. So I think they're doing a better job of sort of making teams drive the entire way. And against Chicago, that was a big focus because they're, one of the most explosive offenses. And if you let Caleb Williams scramble out, as they found out on one play, that he can make anything happen. They've got speedy receivers, but they felt like if we force them to play from the red zone, we can win. And that's what ended up happening is they really, when the field condensed naturally, it played to their advantages. So that's what they're going to try and do. I mean, they're going to give up some plays because if Sam Darnold's protected, there's just going to be some physical matchups I don't think will be in the Rams cornerback's favor. But their hope is that they can either occasionally create a turnover when he tries to go at them, but he, doesn't have his feet set the way he wants because of that pass rush, or they can force them into the red zone where they can let the field condense a little bit and let guys like Cam Curl and Quentin Lake roam a little bit more in disguise coverages and try to make the play that way. So, they're not the defense that's going to just give up 0 points and, not many yards. When they've been at their best, it's because they build enough of a lead on teams that they're forced to kind of create a play, and that's when they create a turnover. They did that the Seahawks one game, the Buccaneers the very next game. So they'll do a mix of all of that in this game, I think.
All right.
What you're getting at, Nate, and with Chris's question, it's so fascinating because like what we have here, I believe the Rams are, double check. Yeah, the third best red zone defense. So it's like, yeah, maybe you can get a bomb over Kobe Durant's head, but that better be how you get there because they have a great run defense. So if you get close to the goal line, they're probably going to stuff you. That's probably why Ben Johnson didn't go for 2 after the commit play, which is what I would have done. I'd have been like, let's punch this in. He's probably like, Caleb's going to throw a pick if we go for 2 against these guys in the red zone. So it's weird. It's like you can get the big play, and if you don't, you get to that red zone, you could be screwed there, which leads into what I'm excited to hear from you now or anticipating is your prediction. And based on all the info you've just given us, I'm curious where you go. Give us a score here, Nate. Who is going to win the NFC Championship on Sunday in Seattle?
Yeah, when I watched that, the Seahawks just destroy the 49ers, and with the way the Rams have been trending, I thought, there's clearly a team that's playing better right now, and it's not the Rams. And you take the Chicago Bears game in totality, and you still have to say that the Seahawks are playing better than the Rams. But the Rams really showed me something I didn't think that they had against Chicago, and that was a special teams unit that can not only survive but make huge winning plays. They had a 50-yard punt out at the 4. They had a 42-yard game-winning field goal, and then a defense that feels like it got back to what it was at midseason with a healthy Poona Ford, healthy Quentin Lake, and just playing with more confidence in the secondary. And so I'm going to go with the Rams in this one. I think they're going to. I don't know which style of it. We've had the offensive shootout, the defensive one. I tend to think it's going to be a little bit more defensive because that's where I think both teams are playing a little at their best right now, I guess you'd say, relative to where they are on that side of the ball. But I just think we're going to eventually see a game where Jared Verse and Byron Young get going. They've had so many opportunities, and they just missed on some of these super slippery mobile quarterbacks like Bryce Young and Caleb Williams. Sam Darnold, they have mostly had a way against when they've matched up against him outside of the end of that last game. And so certainly that's a possibility. But I think their matchup against Sam Darnold is what's going to end up making the difference. And not to take away from Sam, because he's had an amazing year and led 2 straight teams to 14 wins. He's clearly shown that he's that dude in this league. But the thing that's still out there is Sam has to do it in the fourth quarter of a game that's tight in the playoffs. And granted, he did that in that second Seahawks matchup, but I just think this Rams defense is more equipped now with a healthy Poona Ford and Quentin Lake back there. And I think it's going to be a game that comes down to a separation of a field goal or less, because that's just what these teams are. But I just kind of think this is Matthew Stafford's year, and he'll get a bounce back in this game in a matchup with a defense and the special teams that are, playing better than they were early in the season to kind of round this thing out. And so I think I'll go Rams pulling out a very close game, 27-24.
There it is. Another that would be 3 if I'm right, that's 3 straight 3-point road playoff victories. Would that be?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
boy. Oh man, that would be something. That would be something. Chris is writing that down. Google Doc, we got Rams 27, Seahawks 24. Here we go. You make a compelling case there. I'm undecided. I'll probably have to wait to watch some more film there. Chris, you got a pick?
This is the toughest pick ever because fans are probably gonna hate me if I'm. Anywho, I would say it's gonna be. I agree with you, Nate. It'll be a close game. I just think the Seahawks defense is really special, and if they can show that specialness against Sean McVay, who, as you saw, Seahawks, Mike Macdonald and their defense, they just shut down the Niners. And I know they have a bunch of issues. They got a bunch of injuries. I understand that, but they just beat their ass for 4 quarters. And it'd be interesting to see if Mike Macdonald can do that to a Sean McVay offense, because that's what he was brought here to do: beat up on these guys, get them out of here. So I think it'll be a good game, but I'll go with the Seahawks. I think they can get it done. So it should be a fun one. I'll take the Seahawks 23 to 20.
Oh yeah, 3 points each way. I'm still undecided. I'm sorry. I don't have.
I didn't think it was going to change.
You can do that and not make a pick.
Yeah, I can.
You know what?
I'm with you, Nate.
I'm with you, Nate. You know what, Mike? You're making a pick. You could change it whenever you like. But go ahead.
I don't know. I don't know, man.
That's not an answer, Mike.
It is an answer. It's not the one you want, but it is by definition an answer. It's tough. I'm very torn. It's 2 very good teams. I think the Rams played better in both games. So that's why I'm like, well, are they the better team? I don't know. I'm with Nate. I'm watching the Rams offense. I'm like, this don't look right. It's weird. They're scoring points, but it don't look right. But it's like, well, how much does it need to look right? It's got to look right for 30 minutes or 60 minutes. Yeah, that's it. It don't sample size can go out the window, DVAs can go out the window, EPA per play numbers and success rates. You just got to be good that day, So yeah, I don't know. I'm about to rewatch week 16 again, because that was really, it was the worst I've seen a Mike Macdonald defense ever look, by the way. There's 500 plus yards, wide open guys all over the place. Guys named Xavier Smith catching 50-yard bombs. Like, I need to rewatch that and see what was going on there. So I don't know. That's the benefit of being the host of the show. Do what I want, or at least one of the hosts of the show. Chris could have not answered too. That's up to him.
No, I can't leave Nate dry like that, man. I got your back.
You could have.
It's okay.
You could have.
No.
You had his back. Good for you. Good for you. I left him hanging.
The story we team up on for Friday is going to have predictions. So
yes, yeah. We'll combo on a story.
But I do feel you. It's as coin toss of a game as it gets, because what have either of these teams shown all season long to be definitive that one is going to be different, that much better than the other? And home field hasn't decided it so far. It's it has, but like the team that looked better.
But has it really though?
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like the home teams won, but it felt like they won not playing the way that they tried going in to win that game. They were taken out of their styles, both of them, in their home buildings. And so what happens this time? I don't know.
Yeah, it's very, very tricky. You don't, as sometimes in a situation like this, I go with, all right, who has the ball last? Well, it's like, well, the Seahawks had the ball last both times, actually, and split. So, then special teams could be the thing that tilts. But Sean McVay was like, I'm tired of that. See ya, fired that guy. So, and like you said, they've gotten better. That's paid dividends, So it's every time I think one team has an advantage of like, oh, maybe if they have the ball last or whatever, Stafford threw a no-look pass in the Super Bowl, man, like to go win it. So if he has the ball last, I think you're cooked. But then it's like, if Mike Macdonald has the pen last, can his defense go do it? I don't know. So we'll see. I got a lot to figure out. Like you said, me and you are going to team on a story this week. Is there anything else you want to plug real quick before we get you out of here, just where people can follow you? Anything else you got coming up? What you got? The floor is yours. Yeah.
So the big story I'm working on this week is diving into Sean McVay and sort of the way that basically what I'd sum up this last game is that even at his worst as a play caller and play designer, you saw the effects of Sean McVay's culture and his hires on defense and special teams and ability to make changes personnel-wise mid-season to get to this point. And so it's sort of this fascinating moment of like, he's got to bring it as a play caller, but he's got a lot more to himself than that I don't know that gets enough credit around the league when they think about the McVay offense and all the offensive acumen. There's a lot more to this guy and the way that he's I think his best trait is that he gets introspective and he evolves, and he's as hard on himself as anybody. And so this is the week that's going to test that, coming out of a very poor game plan offensively, when that's what he's kind of known for. And they're going to have to bring that against Mike Macdonald. But it's also the fact that he's found a way to evolve throughout his career and sustain this when, he went from one team loaded with stars to a completely different built team with an aging Matthew Stafford, as far as the team around him. So kind of all eyes on Sean to see if he can break through to a third Super Bowl. And he's turning 40 this week too. So he just became the winningest playoff coach ever, passing Don Shula before the age of 40. But this is going to be the game that really defines a lot for him if he can get past a great team like the Seahawks and get back to the Super Bowl and try to maximize this window for Stafford and Davante as they're getting pretty up there in their career. So diving into Sean McVay this week.
All right, I'm looking forward to that. When's Sean's birthday? Is that the game? Game
Saturday.
is his birthday? Saturday. Oh, okay. Wow. All right. There you go.
It's Les Snead's birthday this week, and it's Sean McVay's birthday, and we'll see if they get their birthday wish on Sunday.
Yeah, that would be an awful birthday to come up and take an L. That was your 40th birthday. And on the flip side, though, that plane ride home would be turned if it's his 40th birthday celebration, because then you can just get hammered too, because you got 2 weeks to the Super Bowl too. So that you could do a full George Kittle, like bring the tequila. Let's roll. Actually, I think Sean's a vodka soda. I don't know, but it doesn't matter. Anyway, thank you, Nate, for joining us on the show. I'll appreciate your time as always. We'll connect this week, and then I'll see you when you come up here, man. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely. I think we got a great game ahead of us, and one of us will be at the Super Bowl, so we'll see how it breaks out.
That's right. We're guaranteed one of us will be there. I appreciate you, man. I'll see you this weekend.
Yep.
Big thanks to Nate, man. It was great stuff. Really appreciate the insight there. A lot of good. The Rams are a weird team. They're like Nate said, their offense is like good enough, but now they're coming on defense and special teams. So the Seahawks are good in all three of those phases. We'll see. But thank you guys for tapping in the Seahawks Man to Man podcast. Make sure you subscribe, like, rate, review on all podcast platforms for audio, and then also on our YouTube channel, TikTok, Instagram. All those are Seahawks Man to Man. That is Seahawks Man, the number 2 man. We appreciate the love and support. I made sure to bring a book in the background this time because I have more hardcover copies of my book available now. I don't have that many, so hit me up. And I can get you sent one, or if you're going to be at the game, God bless you, because that means you got bread. If you're going to be at the game on Sunday, you see those tickets, bro, like a band just to stand outside and hear the game. So if you're going to be at the game, I will be signing books pre-game. I'll probably get there around about 2:30 and meet at the concourse. Shoot me a message, DM on any platform. All my DMs are open, even if I don't follow you or you're not verified. Hit me up. I get you a book. Love to meet you guys. Yeah, and then we'll come back with we'll do a film session that'll drop Friday, and then it's showtime on Sunday. So appreciate the love. We'll catch you guys on Friday on our YouTube only show, dropping Friday morning. Peace.